Hey everyone, it's Seth, aka Milner Stone. You know me, I'm that guy who's been sacrificing his sleep and his diet and just my overall physical well-being to keep bringing you all of those Retroid Pocket 3 Plus gameplay videos. And now, thanks to all that time I've spent with the system, I feel confident bringing you my full review of the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. Away with the blue test system, and let's focus just on the retail unit that I received a couple of days ago. First, let me give you a tour of the general system. Of course, starting with the Retroid Pocket 3, we gained clickable sticks so that we get proper R3 and L3 support in systems that use them, like PlayStation 2. Up on the top of the unit, you've got your stacked L1 and L2, as well as the corresponding R1 and R2 on the other side. They do have a nice click to them. Beside that, you've got your home button, your micro HDMI, and the much maligned select and start on the top. Now, I have found that I can easily reach the start button just by stretching my index finger a bit. It's not been a problem to me, and I adjusted quite quickly. The select button, when you need it, is a little bit harder to reach and doesn't seem like the perfect solution, although I do like the clean face of the unit. The D-pad on the left is still using a dome switch like the Retroid Pocket 3. However, there has been a change to the buttons. Prior to this, they were using dome switches as well, but now they're using a conductive rubber membrane. On the left, you've got your volume plus and minus rocker. It works well. I haven't had any issues with that. On the bottom, you've got your TF or micro SD card slot, your USB-C charging port and communication port, and the headphone jack. Then here on the bottom, left and right, as well as on the back, you've got your speaker ports for audio. And then at the very top center of the rear, you've got this for cooling. The Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, like the Retroid Pocket 3, is passively cooled, so there's no fan. Finally, on the right side is your home button. Let's turn the screen back on because it is a beautiful screen. Now let me throw up a comparison between the two systems so I can point out what improvements have been made on the internals of the unit. And I've highlighted all of the key changes. The main ones are there at the top. The Retroid Pocket 3 is on the left and the 3 Plus is on the right. As you can see, while the 3 had only one A75 core, the 3 Plus has two, and it's also doubled the number of A55 cores, and they're clocked higher at 2 GHz. The GPU has changed from a Power VR architecture to a Mali, and it's also slightly faster. Also important is that Mali GPUs are much better supported by Vulkan renderers, which provides a huge boost to performance for certain systems we'll be emulating. The amount of RAM has also increased from either 2 or 3 gigabytes on the RP3 to 4 gigabytes on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. Additionally, you get far more internal storage, which is increased from 32 gigabytes all the way up to 128 gigabytes, which means you have much more room to store games and apps without having to use a micro SD card. The last two changes, the battery has increased from 4,000 milliamp hours to 4,500 milliamp hours, likely to help compensate for that more powerful CPU and GPU combo. As a result of that, the weight has increased by only 5 grams. Speaking of battery performance, I tested the battery using Jak and Daxter 2 because it completely maxes out the hardware, and I was able to obtain 4 hours and 12 minutes of battery life at maximum brightness with Wi-Fi and all Google services turned on. As for the software side of things, I do think that the Retroid launcher has made great strides very quickly. At the Retroid Pocket 3 launch, I would honestly not have recommended using the Retroid launcher. However, now some features have been added and it's just become much more polished and user-friendly. They've included some options to help you set up both RetroArch and also standalone emulators, which is really nice. You can very easily add new consoles and scan for all of your ROMs. In addition, once you do that, the Retroid launcher will go ahead and start filling in box art for all of your games, which is pretty cool. And at this point, I would say that if your needs are fairly simple, you really do just want an emulation device, then the Retroid launcher will take care of you just fine. More importantly, I think the quick progress of this launcher is really a testament to the way that Retroid stands by their products and provides software support after the system launches, which you can't really say for all retro gaming handheld manufacturers. You also get full access to the Google Play Store, which makes it easy to keep all of your standalone emulators up to date, or to download others that might be released in the future. You can also download Android games or Android apps like YouTube or Netflix because, hey, maybe in between gaming sessions, you want to watch some gaming content. Of course, none of those specs matter unless it lets you play games. And luckily it does. Of course, if you want to emulate older systems, that's easy. Of course, you can play your favorite NES classics like Goonies 2, if that's what you're in the mood for. However, you might have grown up with a Sega Master System, so maybe you're more inclined to play a Little Alex Kidd. Either way, for 8-bit systems, this console has way more power than you would possibly need. And it's still way overpowered for 16-bit classics, although who can resist a little Mega Man X on the Super Nintendo? If you want to play Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, a little Altered Beast might be right up your alley. Maybe you were that weird kid in the neighborhood who had a TurboGrafx 16 and you want to play Air Zonk. No judgment, I was always jealous of you guys who had a TurboGrafx 16. For those early CD-based consoles, Sonic CD for the Sega CD will forever be a classic, and obviously it runs great on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. As does Gates of Thunder for the TurboGrafx 16 CD or PC Engine CD, depending on where you're from. And if by chance you were one of those lucky kids whose parents bought them all of the Sega Genesis add-ons, maybe you want to play the best home port of Virtua Racing for the Sega 32X, which also runs perfect. Of course, handheld game consoles are well represented on this handheld as well. You can clearly play any Game Boy or Game Boy Color game that you might have your heart set on. They will all play great. And this system will certainly not struggle to play Game Boy Advance games like F-Zero, Maximum Velocity. But there are two newer handheld systems that really stand out to me on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. The first one is the Nintendo DS, which I didn't expect to love because, of course, there's only one screen. However, because of the aspect ratio, you're able to put the second screen of the game up in the corner or wherever you like it, really. And most games don't use that screen for much. Also, since we have a touchscreen, all of the normal touchscreen functionality you would want in a Nintendo DS is present here. Obviously, Nintendo DS games also run great on this system. Switching gears now for a moment to the 32-bit generation of consoles, the Sega Saturn is notoriously difficult to program for and difficult to emulate because of its complex architecture. The Retroid Pocket 3 certainly struggled with many games. Virtua Fighter 2 in particular would not play at high resolutions or at a full 60 frames per second. This and almost every other Saturn game play great at up to 1080p resolution, but I've already done a video on the Saturn, which I'll link to up top. Sony PlayStation games also gain a huge bump in performance with the move to the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. You can see Rage Racer here running at 3x native PlayStation resolution. Most games will play at 3 or 4x and of course, with all PGXP emulation options turned on. Nintendo 64 games also see an absolutely drastic increase in performance. You can see I'm playing F-Zero X at 2160 by 1620 and 60 frames per second with absolutely zero slowdown whatsoever. Why such a huge resolution, you ask? Well, just to see if we can, but also to test the limits of this hardware, because with time we can find better ways to put all of that excess performance to use through things like texture packs. For me, where things start to get really exciting is on the PlayStation Portable. You can see that using 3x upscaling on Wipeout Pulse makes it look like a completely different game. A different console generation, really. It's super smooth, it's beautiful, it looks way better than it ever would have on the original PSP. It's really like having a remastered version of this game, and I think that's awesome. Dreamcast is the other system that makes me feel this way, because like the PSP, the geometry and the texture work on the original Dreamcast games was good enough that via upscaling, the games look so much better than they ever did before. This is Dead or Alive 2, running at 1920 by 1440 resolution. Of course, all of those previous games were playable on the Retroid Pocket 3. It's just they look much better now. This, however, was definitely not possible on Retroid Pocket 3. This is Gamecube, this is Mario Kart Double Dash, and it's running at full speed on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. There may be some very, very minor frame rate dips, but I'll be honest, when I was playing it earlier, I didn't notice. And I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that all of the GameCube library will run this well, but some games definitely do. I've already got several videos covering PS2 gameplay on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, so I won't spend too much time with it here, except to show you Tony Hawk's Underground 2, which is running great, and I'll also link to one of my PS2 gameplay videos up top if you want to check out more and see just how well the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus handles PlayStation 2 games. And finally, I know you've all been dying to see some Wii. This is New Super Mario Bros. On Wii. It is not running perfect. It's good. It's almost playable. It goes a long way to showing that Wii at full speed on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus is certainly possible. Motion controls even work, and with just a little bit more software development, who knows what might be possible, because I am running this at 1x resolution. That pretty much wraps up the emulator portion of the review, but I do want to talk about just a couple of the value-added features that you get with the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. The first of those, of course, being the TV out. This is Virtua Fighter 3 TB being played from my Retroid Pocket 3 Plus to my 50-inch 4K TV. Now, of course, the output is actually only 720p, but the upscaling does make it look so much better than it ever would on a real Dreamcast. And the other system that benefits greatly from upscaling on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus is PlayStation Portable. And here's Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast, looking absolutely fantastic at 4x resolution, displayed on big screen TV. Playing this way just really lets you enjoy all that extra detail you got from upscaling that you might have missed on the smaller handheld screen. And thanks to the Retroid Pocket 3's clickable sticks and assortment of buttons, as well as the 5G Wi-Fi, you can do cloud gaming. In this case, I'm playing Forza Horizon 5 on Xbox Game Pass cloud game. And please do keep in mind that due to the country I'm currently in, which does not support Xbox cloud gaming, I'm having to do this through VPN. So it is not a fair assessment to the latency of Xbox cloud gaming. However, I wanted to show you that it is possible with the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. And finally, as I mentioned, you can also download YouTube, which you might want to use to check out my channel. Maybe you want to watch one of my other videos and hit that subscribe button. Okay, I think that pretty much covers everything except, well, my actual review, right? At this price point, $149, it's a really great buy. You're not going to find another system that balances ergonomics, portability, performance, and build quality the way that this retro gaming handheld does. Anything else you might buy is going to be more expensive. If it's cheaper, it's almost certainly going to have a lower quality screen or make compromises somewhere else. You get flawless emulation, sometimes better than perfect, for everything up to PlayStation Portable and the Sega Dreamcast, and that's great. I was also really surprised at how many PlayStation 2 games and Gamecube games that are running really well on this already. The handhelds that are significantly better are also significantly more expensive. If you're someone who's coming from the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus or who bought the Retroid Pocket 3, this is a big improvement. It has a great screen. It has great Wi-Fi capabilities that allow you to stream the games that you can't emulate on the device. You get Google Play, you've got Android, so that you have options available to you. You also are buying from a company that has proven it is willing to continue supporting software development for their previous handhelds. And that's important because otherwise you're going to have to rely on the community to do that for you. And it's not something you can always depend on. The downsides, of course, Wii emulation may never be great on this device. Of course, people also have some valid complaints about the location of the start and select buttons. I can't argue with that. I can say that in my usage of the system, I haven't had real issues adjusting to their placement. I have also noticed the system does get a little warm when you're playing things like PlayStation 2. That's probably to be expected. It never gets uncomfortable. Even when I was doing my battery drain test with Jak and Daxter 2, it never got hot. So my final verdict, if you're looking for a retro gaming handheld under $150, my recommendation, buy the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. If you're at all interested, if you think you might be interested, you're gonna love it. I'm confident saying that. And that does it for my review of the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. I will be back later with a detailed setup guide so that you can quickly get started. So check for that later. For now, I think I need a little bit of rest and maybe just to play some games for fun. So I'm gonna take my own advice and keep gaming.